Welcome inside the vault. This is your noonday hour lunch live stream. I am Sarah Ellison, and I am indeed solo today. It is a Sarah solo day because unfortunately, Bobby Trossett is still under the weather. He's kind of trending in the wrong direction. Talked to him very briefly earlier this morning. He was trying to conserve his voice because he was up coughing so much that his throat is just absolutely spent. So I know that he's looking into getting a doctor's appointment as we speak. So I told him to go back to bed for sure. Of course, Bobby wanted to get up and he wanted to help me out, at least prepare for the show. So again, this has been one of those weeks. I don't think since Monday have we been able to start anywhere close to noon due to either Bobby being sick and me going solo or because of the press conference yesterday ending right at noon and we had to get things ready to turn around. So this has been one of those weeks, and I appreciate both Bobby and I appreciate you guys being patient with us. And unfortunately, when I found out he was sick and that I'd be going solo, I just couldn't move my morning around to try to do both the work that I do and Bobby does early. So thank you once again for your patience. But boy, do I tell you, even though it is a Sarah solo day, once again, I've got a ton of content to get to. And that will start with Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews and some of the raw emotions, raw reactions that we are now able to see courtesy of Hard Knocks. Really both some moments where Lamar displayed the utmost class and the utmost respect to his teammates and his opponents, despite the way he was feeling inside. And for the first time, we got an inside look of how he was feeling once he, had already given his love to his teammates and to his opponents. And then things got real. Things got very real when he went inside and was in the locker room, mostly by himself, but a few people still in there. So we're going to get to some of those Hard Knocks things. I want to get into some comments from Chris Long over from the Greenlight podcast. I thought he had some very insightful thoughts, including on Lamar, Mark, and then also just kind of the overall way that the Ravens played. I also want to get into Derrick Henry, who sent a clear message to Eric DaCosta, the Ravens fans, the NFL world. Short but sweet on his Instagram post. He also had some very nice words to say about Lamar after the game. There's some updates we've gotten in terms of the MVP voting and Pro Bowls. Some people are in or some people are out based off of injuries to players that initially made the team, plus much more. I've got a lot of quick hits. Ravens doing some signings to some future contracts here, so plenty to get here. So what we saw after the game, we saw Lamar Jackson go up to Josh Allen with a big look at that beaming smile on his face, being as happy for him as if it's his own self who won the game, being as happy as for him as if it's his own teammate, if it's his own brother. And people were asked, well, Lamar, what did you say to him? What did you say to him? Well, we don't have to wonder anymore because the Hard Knocks cameras caught their interaction, and it was about as classy as you can imagine. Once you saw the smile on his face, here is their interaction.
Good game, bro. You already know that. Keep doing your shit, baby. Go get some, man. Get some.
So there he is. I'll play it one more time, telling him to go get something afterwards. Go get something. Do something with the win. Huge smile on his face. One more time.
Good game, bro. You already know that. Keep doing your shit, baby. Go get some, man. Get some.
Man, the amount of self-control, self-mastery that Lamar Jackson showed in that clip. We've seen the self-mastery in terms of the football field, the way his athleticism, the way he can control his athleticism, the way he can move defenders with his eyes, the way he can juke people and make one defender go one way and break their ankles while he goes another. He's got complete control over his physical attributes. That right there was a display of complete control over his emotions, complete control over his words, complete control over his tongue, another metaphor for his words. Just an absolute class act when you know he's gutted inside. Then how about to his teammate Mark Andrews? We know Mark Andrews had 2 drops, including the 2-point conversion that could have tied the game with 1:33 left. We know that he got the ball punched out and fumbled after a catch for a first down. And you know, Mark Andrews, if Lamar Jackson felt gutted, I don't even know what the words are for Mark Andrews. Because Lamar had an opportunity to overcome his turnovers, and he did. He played like the MVP that he is in that second half. Did the same thing on the first drive. He had a bad quarter, 2 really bad drives. But he had a chance to overcome it. And he did. Until that drop. And so Lamar, again, knowing that his dream, his goals, his promises that he has stated since he was drafted and was up on that stage with Deion Sanders, ripped away from him. He sees his teammate over on the bench, and what does he do? Once again, we have selfless, class act Lamar Jackson going over to Mark Andrews.
And you lose by 2.
It's all us, bro. We're a team, bro. We're a team. It's all us, bro. It ain't just you.
It's devastating.
It's devastating. It's devastating. But does Lamar Jackson show that to Mark Andrews? Does Lamar Jackson go to the man who's been by his side since 2018 and rub it in his face? No. I don't know that there's another player on this planet who doesn't just understand the concept of team, but embodies it. Embodies it. He understands that football is the ultimate team sport. He probably, and after the game, he pointed to himself and talked about his own mistakes when he was asked about Mark Andrews. Again, the self-mastery that he put on display is something that I aspire to. And how do we know? How do we know that this was self-mastery? Because finally, we got to look inside the locker room after his opponents were off the field, after the majority of his teammates were gone. Lamar Jackson sat at his locker, and then he got real. He spoke about his raw emotions after that loss.
2 points. I wasn't like, I don't let shit linger, but I just know how these type of games be. That's why I kept saying, like, man. I'm mad, bro. I ain't gonna be all right.
I came in, being a teammate and, found a brother. Lamar is, what made this thing go. And he's the reason why we still had a chance. So, tell him the same thing, hold his head high, man.
Hats off to all the guys, man, the players who was all on the journey together, man. Unfortunately, some of the guys won't be here next year.
Woo, woo. You don't hear Lamar Jackson speak that way too often. 2 points, he says in that clip from Hard Knocks. I don't let stuff linger, but I just know how these types of games be. That's why I kept saying, oh man, I'm mad, bro. Then he says, I ain't gonna be all right. I ain't gonna be all right. I think Lamar will be all right. I'm sure of it, actually. But I get what he's saying in a sense, like, these type of moments, they're seared into your memory for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna I guarantee he's replaying that interception over and over in his brain. He told us, "I should have looked off the safety. I should have looked him off." I'm sure he's replaying that fumble after the bad snap. He's replaying it. He's like, "Okay, bad snap, but I gained control." And he told us in the post game presser. He said, "I should have just fell on it." So he's going to be reliving it. He's going to remember seeing that bad snap come off, regaining it, and wishing he had just fallen on it. He's going to relive the 2-point conversion that got tipped by Milano and thinking, should I put more of a rainbow touch on it, to get it over Milano? He's going to look at that 2-point conversion with Mark, and he's going to be like, seeing that ball go into his hands and then just fall to the ground. He's going to see it forever. So in that sense, he says, I'm not going to be all right. I'm not going to be all right. Like, he's going to remember this forever. But I do believe Lamar Jackson is going to be all right. There's no doubt in my mind the Ravens are going to be back in this position as long as Lamar is healthy. The Ravens are going to be right back in the divisional round, maybe with the home game this time. He's going to be back. But he's going to remember it, and it's going to drive him the next time he's back in this position again. 1,000%. 1,000%. Let me get this bigger so I can see it here. And so I just think I wanted to go back and replay all three of those clips together, because putting it together, when one shot, you see him consoling Mark Andrews one moment. You see him celebrating Josh Allen the next moment. And then you see him alone at his locker the next moment with his head down saying, I ain't going to be all right. He's gonna let this linger as motivation and as a cause going forward. But is it going to break Lamar Jackson? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He's going to be back. He's going to be back 1,000%. Now, I really like some clips from Chris Long from the Green Light podcast. He did a really good job of kind of like taking us in on kind of his thoughts for Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson later. And this is like really, really well done, because on one hand, it's like both things are true at once for me. Mark Andrews, as we get to his clip on Mark Andrews, he blew it. He blew it. He had the game-tying catch in his hands. He blew it. And at the same time, I can only speak for myself. I can already see in the chat before I even make this statement, they're going to disagree. I can move forward with Mark Andrews. I can. And so Chris Long does a good job of kind of getting into what that was like in that moment and the way he reacted to Mark Andrews.
The way that the Baltimore game ended, and I was on the Bills, and hey, listen, as an analyst, I felt good about the outcome of the game last night because it echoed a lot of things we've talked about this year with that team and with the quarterback that won. But the way that game ended was heartbreaking. I've never felt so empty watching money go into my account. Honestly, I mean, I'm not even being funny or talking about gambling. I'm just telling you, like, I was sitting there and I couldn't even celebrate the way the game ended. Bless you, Bo. Watching Mark Andrews, I mean, the shot of him on the sideline as Buffalo went on that 5-minute drive to make it an 8-point game and kick, which was the right call. Mark Andrews on the sideline, it was excruciating after that fumble, knowing that, like, hey, am I going to get another shot at this thing? And to know that he got his shot in the corner of the end zone by the pylon, and they go to him, they go right back to him, and he drops the ball. I cannot understate when you watch professional athletes. A lot of people say I would trade my situation for Mark Andrews' situation. And I would have said that. I would have said, waking up yesterday, I would have traded my career for Mark Andrews' career. Not anymore. The way that the Baltimore game ended, and I was on the Bills, and hey, listen, as an analyst, I felt good about the outcome of the game last night because it echoed a lot of things we've talked about this year with that team and with the quarterback that won. But the way that game ended was heartbreaking. I've never felt so empty watching money go into my account. Honestly. I mean, I'm not even being funny or talking about gambling. I'm just telling you, like, I was sitting there and I couldn't even celebrate the way the game ended. Bless you, Bo. Watching Mark Andrews.
Looks like that clip was on a loop. Let me take off the loop there. So when he said, like, a lot of people would like to trade places with Mark Andrews, right? Like, you're a franchise leader in touchdowns, passing Todd Heap, one of the great Ravens of the past. And there's been so many, like, I mean, we all called them Mandrews and security blanket for Lamar Jackson and somebody who you would want to retire Ravens. So somebody like that, Chris Long is saying here, I would trade positions with him. And then after that game, he's like, not anymore. Not anymore. And as he said, I mean, I'd said it for Lamar, but 10 times fold for Mark Andrews. He's never going to forget that. And the human side of me wants Mark Andrews to be able to redeem himself. The football side of me is like, he had a chance to redeem himself after that fumble with that 2-point conversion, but then bungled it again. And it's tough. It's tough. But as we heard yesterday, John Harbaugh said Mark Andrews is a big part of the Ravens' future. Eric DeCosta said that he doesn't have a lot of big decisions to make in the tight end room. They're all under contract for another year. My prediction, because they're all under contract for another year, is they're going to go ahead and ride it out with the three of them. I think Mark's contract is somewhere in the $16 million range for a cap hit next year. They're going to ride it out, but by the end of the year, or in free agency, maybe before the end of the year, it'll be Isaiah Likely who gets the big contract as his second contract coming out of his rookie year. And then Mark Andrews will have a choice to make. Does he want to go out at that point in the 2026 offseason and say, hey, I want to go test the market and see what I can get? Or does he say, you know what? I want to be back with the Ravens and I'll take a modest deal. It would be his third contract. And I want to stay here and start with the quarterback that I started with and all that. But that's like a year away. That's a year away. So eventually I do think that Isaiah Likely will not only get Mark Andrews money, but I think he will also get that tight end one role. This season coming up, I think both will be featured again. And a lot of that will come down to just the chemistry and that Lamar Jackson has with both. But I think we're going to have the exact same tight end room. Now, I also really liked this clip from Chris Long on the handshake between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, because he said he got a specific text message about it that he couldn't agree or could disagree more with somebody's thoughts on that handshake. So we'll play that.
Last year when Patrick Mahomes ran up to Josh Allen, or during the regular season, and was pissed about the call and was incensed because of his competitive fire, people were like, I don't like the way he's acting. Now, listen, we got a group chat. I'm not going to name who it was. He's a guy I love. He's not in this room. But last night after the game, he's like, I don't know if Lamar smiling after the game is a great look. I felt the complete opposite about that. When Lamar ran out to shake his hand, I was blown away by his grace and his humility and his ability in his worst moment to smile. And I know that was intentional by him. And it showed Josh a lot of respect. I think it also spoke to the respect that both of them have. When you heard Lamar's comments leading up to the game, this was life or death for him, as close as it could be to the NFL, metaphorically speaking. And it ends on a drop, and he has multiple mistakes in the first half, and he played fantastic in the second half. But that loss fucking hurt. And for him to go out there to midfield and smile on his face, greet Josh, show humility, I don't want to hear a bad thing about Lamar, the person, or the teammate, or the leader, or the human being. He's as accountable and fucking stand up as anybody in the league, and he's damn close to one of the best players on the planet. For different stretches, he looks like it. It hasn't been the case in the postseason. Now he played really well in the second half.
Yeah, see, I 100% agree with Chris. I can see the chat has guesses of who the person is that sent him that that text message. I'm on board with you, chat, of who that could be, but Chris didn't want to reveal it, so I'll leave it at that. But like this whole promoting that, like the side of Lamar that he showed in the locker room that Hard Knocks picked up, that he doesn't show publicly almost ever. Like he'll show that he's ticked off, but he rarely, I mean, I've never heard him say something like, you know, I'm not going to be all right. You know, that side of him, like whoever texted Chris Long, like, are you under the impression that like Lamar wasn't gutted because he was able to put his emotions to the side for a second and show respect to the competitor against him? Like, are you wanting him to throw a tantrum, to be throwing his helmet, to be doing all of that after the game is over, when nothing can be done? Nothing can be done with that result. And so what? He talked about on here, Chris Long did, about the handshake with Patrick Mahomes, between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen earlier this year. And when Patrick Mahomes lost to Josh Allen, Josh is coming over to give him a handshake. And instead of congratulating Josh, he says, and this is Patrick Mahomes, who often appears to get plenty of calls going his way. I mean, we can just talk about the roughing the passer calls he got on plays that were way more mild than some hits that Lamar took out of bounds, and Lamar didn't get them. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes isn't the most favored quarterback when it comes to refereeing, he's certainly up there. So of all people, to have him come to Josh Allen in the face of defeat and says, wildest effing call I've ever seen, man. Offensive offsides, effing terrible. What's Josh supposed to do about that? Josh and his team just beat you. And I don't have any hate for Patrick Mahomes. He's one of the best ever. He gets a third Super Bowl in as a three-peat, his fourth overall, but a three-peat 3 times in a row. He could pass Tom Brady. And I respect it. He's the opponent, so I don't love him, but I respect him. But this part, you go up to your opponent and you go to handshake him and you complain to him about the referee? No, that's not. I'm happy with the way Lamar Jackson conducted himself with Josh Allen. Instead of complaining to him, while like what is Lamar supposed to do? I cannot believe my tight end fumbled the ball and then dropped the 2-point conversion. Wildest effing stuff I've ever seen. What's Josh got to do with that? Doesn't have nothing. He doesn't have anything to do with that. Same way he doesn't have anything to do with the refereeing. No, Lamar showed the respect to his opponent. And just because Lamar put on a smile for his opponent to be happy for him doesn't mean that he's not motivated or gutted himself. And we saw that with the Hard Knocks. We saw that. There's a time and a place for the words and for the energy and for the emotions. And Lamar hit it to a perfect T. He had it right. He absolutely had it right. Now, I didn't pull this clip, but later on, Chris Long said the following, and I think he's absolutely right when he was talking about what went wrong for the Ravens. He says, I don't watch Lamar and think the moment is too big for him. Good, because we all saw it. The moment wasn't too big for Lamar. The biggest deficit the Ravens had all year by halftime. And the man going into the locker room was clapping and encouraging his team. He knew it was within reach. He knew that they had it within them. And then he balled out. And then he gets the ball at the 12-yard line without his top wide receiver. And then after his first pass to his new top receiver in the game, in Rashad Bateman, he gets hurt. So then he's got to go the rest of the distance, 80-plus yards. Or 75, wherever it was at that point. And he has to go to the distance. And he's throwing balls to Tylan Wallace. And Derrick Henry's out of the equation because they don't have enough time in that fourth quarter moment when you got to go 88 yards. And pass after pass. Or one of his scrambles. He just keeps converting. He keeps converting. We all saw it. The moment was not too big for him. So good on Chris. Then he says, though, Chris, so the moment's not too big for him. Then it says the moment wasn't too big for him at the end of the game. With the Ravens, the mundane moments are too big for them. And that's been the story with them, close quote. The mundane moments have been too big for the Ravens. The pass is in your hands. It's right there. You've caught a pass like that a million times before. This is the other thing. I was thinking about this the other day because I was listening to Shannon Sharp talking about how on the fumble, right? On the fumble that Lamar made. He's like, you have to live with that though, because Lamar did the same thing against the Bengals when it was a bad snap. He recovers it. He scrambles out to the right, buys time, jumps in the air, gets hit while he's throwing it, and finds Likely in the end zone. So, that's what you can get from Lamar, these electric plays. And I was thinking, well, what's the lesson? If I'm Lamar Jackson, what's the lesson? What's the lesson? We were also thinking about these Monday moments. And the lesson is, we know, as Chris said, at times, you're the best player on the planet Earth. We've seen him be the best player and literally Superman and bail this team out. So then what's the lesson? The lesson is, when do I put on the cape? And you kind of have to be aware situationally when I have to put on the cape. And maybe the thought is, and this isn't to bash Lamar, this is moving forward, what's the next step, right? This is hopefully all what's the next step to get better? So I say this, so maybe it's, okay, we're in the second quarter and we're tied at 7. And it's second down. And it's snowy. It's snowy outside. Maybe because it's second down, we're in the second quarter, and the game is tied. Right now, I don't need to put on the cape. Instead, let me try to salvage this drive. So I'll fall on it this time. And maybe there's a chance that I could pull off what I did against the Bengals. We always know that there's a chance for that. but also what's the risk? And in the second quarter on second down, when I get a bad snap, I'm going to fall, especially because Lamar explained it well. It was an RPO. So once he recovered, it's an RPO. Your lineman's down the field, so he can't throw it or they're going to get penalized. It's an RPO. I'm not allowed to throw it. It's second quarter. It's a tied ball game. I'm just gonna recover the ball. See if I can make something happen on third down. And if not, we'll punt it and not allow them to get this fumble and return it all the way to where they go to, inside the 10. And so maybe that's the next step. We know you can be Superman. We know it. We've seen it. We've witnessed it time and time and time and time and time again. But then, can I make sure the mundane moments? This was a mundane snap that we do 70, 60, 70 times a game. It's a bad snap. Now's not the time to be Superman. Now, if that was a bad snap and they're in the fourth quarter and they're down by 7, you're down by 10, something like that, then it's like the risk is worth it. The risk is worth it. Now I'm going to put on my cape. And there's a great chance that I do something, but if by chance something bad happens, fine, because we're running out of time. You know what I mean? And so that's just it. Like, and that's more the story of the 2024 Ravens, right? Of like, it's the Raiders. How about another mundane moment? Because this isn't just for Lamar Jackson. How about another mundane moment? Lamar Jackson just threw a 40-plus yarder to Rashad Bateman to the 2-yard line. They did a run blitz on first down. You went to Henry, they're run blitzing. You decide you want to go with something else. Fine. Don't go up the middle because they're run blitzing. Fine. But maybe this is not the moment to do a trick play to Ronnie Stanley, your tackle. That's where they got the -5. Again, you're right there. So fine, they're run blitzing. Do a toss out to the right. Do a quarterback run out to the right. Get those yards back. They're crashing inside the middle. Cool, don't go back there. But maybe this moment is not the time that we've never really done this before, that we run our trick play to our left tackle. Again, it's another moment. We're on the 2. Let's not overthink this. You know, pitch out to Derrick Henry next time. Run a read option. Or let Lamar run it out to the left or to the right. Because they're all crashing in the middle. You know, it's another mundane moment. Mark Andrews, you got the first down. You got the first down in the fourth quarter. We're moving. Just go straight up the field. We just got the first down. There's plenty of time. There's no need, Mark Andrews, for you to try to put on a cape and try to juke people when you're a massive tight end and not Zay Flowers. Just go straight up the field and protect the ball. Or how about last year in the AFC Championship game? Zay Flowers, don't extend that ball. You got it all the way down to the 1. Right? They teach you, don't extend that. Don't extend it where you can get a punch out. Now the ball is not protected. Right? Take the plays that are given to you. You're talented enough to just not put on the cape in mundane moments. Learn to put on the cape in the appropriate times. This is for Lamar Jackson. It's for Todd Monken. It's for Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, for everybody. Know the situation that you're in. Felt like there was one other thing. In that clip that we heard just a minute ago, where Chris Long was talking about, I heard all this talk that Josh doesn't have players, this and that. It's just so funny because an unnamed Bills person, you're going to say something, I say it with your chest out or don't say it at all. But an unnamed Bills person told Albert Breer, the quote, now those 9 Pro Bowlers can go to the Pro Bowl. And then, Bleacher Report, Gridiron, tweets that and says Bills clearly felt disrespect. What's funny to me about this whole Pro Bowl thing and the supporting cast You guys tell me if you've heard different. They felt disrespected. They should feel disrespected by their own fan base. Because the people that I heard the most disrespecting Josh Allen's supporting cast was their fans in an effort to build up Josh Allen as the MVP. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's who I heard yelling it the loudest, easily the loudest. Speaking of like mundane and not having to put on the Superman cape for every single moment where things seem to be going bad. Kyle Van Noy talked about what he saw from the Bills and how it was different from the last time he's played them in the past.
Something that I saw them do, which I know I don't think I've ever seen them do this, is how conservative they played.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most conservative Bills team I've ever played against. You know, I don't know about the talent thing that Josh Allen was saying. I think everybody knows they're talented. They have a top 5 O-line probably in the league. You know, MVP Allen, solid skill players.
Man, I don't know what he was getting.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I can understand.
People find a reason to put a chip on their shoulder.
I do think defense, they could have had, they could feel that way because people were saying they were, too small and, all that. I don't know. Like, we lost. I'm not talking trash. I mean, I felt like we still ran the ball pretty well in the game. It just came down to turnovers. They had 3 critical turnovers that they made. They have some good players on there. Bernard, their middle backer, he's been one of the best backers in the league, middle linebackers. He's created turnovers. He's kind of took over that Matt Milano role that was established by Matt Milano, and now he carries that torch of being that guy of causing turnovers in the middle. He's been very, very good. So he played well, DeMar Hamlin's pick, and he had a sack in the game. And then the turnover, fumble, and, Von Miller scooped it up and got it down to the 8-yard line. Defense was playing on short fields all game, and which is tough against a good football team, and they played fundamentally sound. Got to give them a lot of credit how they played the game. They didn't make any mistakes.
Something that I saw them do, Kavanaugh said, which I don't think I've ever seen them do, is how conservative they played. That was the most conservative Bills team I've ever played against, close quote. Bobby transcribing that. And then Bobby goes on to say in his tweet, when your opponent, meaning the Ravens, is notorious for beating itself, both in the playoffs and in 2024, Buffalo's vanilla approach to Sunday night tends to be a winning formula. And that's what the Ravens have invited. Just play conservative and wait for us to shoot ourselves in the foot. It worked to a T. Now, they may have had to have gotten out of their conservative play had the Ravens not shot themselves in the foot. I mean, it's crazy. We saw how the Ravens beat them down when they didn't shoot themselves in the foot. And even with the Matt Milano's back and all the other guys that came back, and it does make a difference for the Bills for sure. But when you are notorious, when Bill Belichick is saying on national shows from week 3 that the Ravens' own worst enemy is the Ravens, when Myles Garrett, one of the most respected defenders in the league, and plays you twice a year, every year, and knows you just as well as anybody, tells the ESPN broadcast crew that the biggest enemies to the Ravens is the Ravens, when these respected voices like Bill Belichick and Myles Garrett is saying that, and when you see it yourself on tape, why wouldn't you go into the game with a conservative strategy and approach? And it worked beautifully for the Bills, which is why it comes back to what Chris Long says. No, the moment was not too big for Lamar Jackson, but the mundane moments, just like they were for all of 2024, were too big for the Ravens. And that kind of brings us to this. I really liked this screen grab, or excuse me, this chart from The Athletic. Mike Sando. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see this. Actually, before I shift to that, I did have one super chat here that I want to get to. Let me read this really quick. Neil Harold says, "Poor Bobby the Broken." Bobby the Broken. I'm telling you guys, I spoke to him this morning. His voice was shot. Just completely shot. Coughing all night. He says, "Clearly Bobby's buffaloing was worse than thought, but get well soon." Yeah, I mean, I know he was out there. He was touring Niagara Falls before the game. Then obviously out there for the pregame show in pretty cold weather. So wouldn't be surprised if that got to him. So yeah, thank you for Neil telling him get well soon. And he says, and thanks Solo Sarah for keeping the vault open today. Absolutely. Absolutely. Have to keep the show going. Okay, so Mike Sando, I really thought this was fascinating. He put together a chart for quarterback EPA. Quarterback EPA is very similar the way they determine these grades. It's very similar to the ESPN's QBR grades. So we know that passer rating is a grade for, that's it, just passing. So it looks at like your attempts, your completions, interceptions, and touchdowns, yardage, and things like that. Whereas QBR is a much more encompassing grade that includes rushing yards and rushing touchdowns and everything that a quarterback does. So Mike Sando of The Athletic put together this chart which compares various quarterbacks and how they play in the regular season versus the playoffs. Okay? So the diagonal line in the middle is your baseline play. And the closer that both your blue dots in the regular season and your red dots in the postseason, the closer they're to that baseline, the more consistent you are. Now, if you're on the blue side and pretty far away, it's showing that you play much better. And if the red dot is farther away from that diagonal line, then that means your playoff performances dip. Now, I've put a purple box around Lamar Jackson so you can see it. And he has gotten significantly better in the last 2 years, which is why Mike Sando wanted to show how he's grown. So it's better. He's closing the gap, but still not quite there yet. So you can see Lamar Jackson before 2023. And I mean, he's almost off the chart in a bad way before 2023 and how his quarterback EPA drops in the postseason. Okay, so he's far from his baseline. And you can see he's made it up quite a bit in 2023 and 2024, but still has a ways to go. And I'm telling you, it's the turnovers that are a massive hit to these grades, these EPA per play grades. It's a massive, massive hit. Now, you may be asking yourself, oh, so we want to be Mark Sanchez and Nick Foles, who we can see way above. And Mike Sando makes a note that if you haven't had a lot of playoff games, then you're going to be at these extremes. So Mark Sanchez and Nick Foles just not having a lot of playoff games. So they, if they played in more playoff games, they would come closer to the middle, which you can see Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are much closer to the middle. Peyton Manning, a little bit further off. Okay. But that's the goal, is try to become consistent both in the regular season and postseason, or just be better in the postseason too. Be great in the regular season. Now, this also lets you know, though, Lamar Jackson is sensational, obviously, in the postseason. So, that's a part of it. But I want to read, he says, Mike Sando says, Jackson is trending in the right direction because his playoff production over the past 2 postseasons has improved. There are 2 dots for him on the chart showing the positive shift. He still lags well below his contemporaries, notably Allen. You can see Josh, he's in the blue. Okay. So he's close to that line, but he's actually a little bit better in that postseason. He still lags well below his contemporaries, notably Allen in the playoffs. And because of the way things ended Sunday, he won't get a chance to change that until next offseason. So, we can talk about, there's lots of reasons that the Ravens are not doing well in the postseason. This is just specific to Lamar, and this weeds out what other things are going well or right. This is specifically to Lamar. And so I'm telling you, he comes down on those turnovers, and that will help. Now, I don't know if Truth is here. Truth Bear is often in this show, but I really liked some things he put out on Twitter yesterday. Truth, if you're here, show yourself. Because we've talked about this earlier in the week. How it's not just turnovers committed on the offense, but it's turnovers forced by the defense. So Truth went out and did some research on these other three quarterbacks that are often right there with Lamar competing. I'd say these are, most people would say, the 4 top quarterbacks in the league right now. And I know Jaden Daniels is trying to skyrocket into this conversation. I mean, he might be number 5 right now. But Truth Bearer went out and found out how much are these quarterbacks' defenses helping them in the turnover department. Because it's not just turnovers, it's turnover margin, right? So that puts the onus on the defense also. Okay? So Kansas City Chiefs have 22 opponent turnovers with Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs all time. 22. Now, obviously, they've played in a ton of games in the playoffs, so we may need to look at what the average is, but 22 is a lot. 22 is a lot. Okay, what about the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow? Well, they've created 13 opponent turnovers in all the playoff games they've played with Joe Burrow. This is all according to Stat News. Josh Allen, 13, also same as Burrow, 13 opponent turnovers they've created with Josh Allen as their quarterback. And then the Ravens only have two opponent turnovers with Lamar Jackson. And Lamar's played in plenty of games, certainly up there with Burrow. Josh Allen might have a few more because I know he's made it to the championship game a few more times. But 2. That's it. 2. And as Truth Bearer noted on Twitter, that's the worst rate in history / the worst margin of error ever. So is Truth in here? Have you guys seen him? Go tag him on Twitter and tell him to come in here. So that made me wonder, though, and on the flip side, since we're looking at all these quarterbacks and the turnovers created by their defenses to help them out, we also, and by the way, Truth added this. He went and found the average for everybody that's been in at least 8 playoff games. Lamar Jackson all the way at number 41 with an average of 0.25 turnovers per game created by the defense. The defense needs to help Lamar out. They got to step up. Now Lamar has to help himself out also. That made me want to go look at how many turnovers the other quarterbacks. We know Lamar has turned the ball over 11 times in his playoff games. I'm telling you, the answer is staring us in the face. It's the turnover battle in the playoffs. That's it. And if you try not to do too much, you're going to considerably hold down your turnovers, including Mark Andrews, right? Where you're doing too much. Go north and south and go down, protect the ball. Patrick Mahomes, he's played in a lot of playoff games. 9 turnovers in the playoffs. Joe Burrow, 4 turnovers in the playoffs. Josh Allen, 6. Lamar, 11. So it's on both sides of the ball. We talked about it earlier this week. This is it. People keep saying, tear it down, rebuild, fire this guy, fire that guy, da-da-da-da. Nah, just take care of the ball. And they know this. On Hard Knocks, the irony of it all is Lamar was telling his teammates, let's take care of the ball, let's take care of the ball, let's take care of the ball. They know it. We saw Todd Monken before the Steelers game. Morgan Adsit went and got video of Todd Monken screaming at wide receivers during their drills, wanting those punch-out drills and wanting to make sure they protected the ball correctly. And then he wasn't happy with it, so he runs like 50 yards, goes down there, tells him how to hold it, and starts punching it himself. It's definitely emphasized in the building. Coaches emphasize it. Players emphasize it. They all know it. You just got to get it done in the game. You just got to get it done in the game. Meanwhile, we got updates on some MVP voting. The All-Pro voting, they've revealed who the top 5 MVP vote getters are. And not a surprise who the top 5 are. We got Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, and Lamar Jackson. So they're the top 5. We'll find out just before the Super Bowl who will actually win it. I remember that news coming down when I was on Radio Row last year in Las Vegas at the Super Bowl. So we'll find out then. Meanwhile, Pro Football Writers of America, they did their own vote. This is different from Associated Press voting. But PFWA put out their MVP and they voted for Lamar. And I'm going to celebrate it. I think it's pretty clear that Lamar is going to be it because he was voted as the first team All-Pro pretty convincingly over Josh Allen. And I wanted to put out this tweet. I don't know if you guys follow Matt Weiss. He's a great Twitter follow. I love following him. And there's a lot of people that have this same sentiment, for which I'm going to explain why I disagree. But much respect to Matt and anybody else that feels this way because I get it, but I disagree with it. So there are some people when this news came out that Lamar's, top 5 in AP voting and he won the Pro Football Writers of America MVP. And this was from a while ago, by the way. Matt tweeted this not recently. This was like in late December when the MVP talk was getting pretty loud. And he says, if Lamar wins the 3rd MVP, I'll be extremely happy for him. So love that. Agree with that. He goes, but really, I couldn't care less. I think you guys already know I cared, which is why I was arguing for it for all of December. He says, if he wins it and they win a Super Bowl, it'll be a cherry on top. If he wins it and they don't win a Super Bowl, it's a anecdote on his Hall of Fame resume. I think the way Matt wrote that is good. I've seen other people say it in a more harsh way. Like they're just like, I just don't want him to win it because it gives them more fodder. And this is it, right? To the left, we see how many quarterbacks have won multiple MVPs. And the list is short. And these are not just Hall of Fame quarterbacks or soon to be Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I mean, these are the best of the best. Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Brett Favre, Johnny Unitas, Patrick Mahomes, Kurt Warner, Steve Young, Joe Montana, Joe Namath, and then Lamar Jackson. And then out of the group, you've probably seen this before, Lamar's the only one that doesn't have a Super Bowl yet. So those that either are, I don't know what the word is, ashamed if Lamar wins a 3rd MVP, or if you feel meh about it, as in like in Matt's words. And again, I respect Matt. This isn't, anything against Matt. This is a general sentiment that I've been fighting against for quite a while now. To me, you're saying 2 things by being either ashamed or nervous or meh by getting a 3rd MVP, which you have to be incredible to get that. But because he hasn't won a Super Bowl, to me, that tells me 2 things that I think that's the message that you'd be sending me. Number 1, you're saying that you don't believe he will win a Super Bowl. I do. I've listened to a lot of analysts who have been hard on him, and they all say they think he's going to win one too. Because when all is said and done, and Lamar does get that Super Bowl, it is going to matter that he has 3 MVPs and maybe more because he's only 28. That's the first thing you're telling me. It's like a short-sighted view. He doesn't win it this year, so he's never going to win it. When he does get it, and he has 3+ MVPs. I'm telling you, he's going to be in the top 3, 4, 5 conversation of all-time quarterbacks. His career's not over. That's the first message you're sending me, that you don't think he will win a Super Bowl. And maybe you don't. Okay? The second thing is to me, you've been officially beat down by letting others shame you out of wanting to win. What? An MVP of the entire regular season? You're allowing trolls on the internet to make you ashamed of winning multiple. And no doubt he needs to carry that into the Super Bowl. But I'm telling you, even if he weren't going to win a Super Bowl, and I think he will, being able to accomplish that is mind-blowing. And you're so caught up in the trolls that you can't appreciate a potential third one. No, this is greatness. And now you don't want him to win it? And this is I guess there's a third thing you're telling me. Because here's the thing. You can fight against the Bill Polians of the world who are act as like right? Analysts act as judges, right? They're judging a situation. And they're acting as judges. And you can tear down Bill Polian, or you can tear down Stephen A. Smith, or you can tear down Shannon Sharp and say, well, you know, this is a bad argument, or what did you do, or this and that and this and that. And so now, because you don't want people judging him at a very high expectation, now you want to destroy the standard of MVP. You want to act like meh because you don't want it used against him. Because if he's an MVP, then that means his expectation in the playoffs is much higher than it is for, say, Josh Allen, or say Jared Goff, or say Matthew Stafford, or any of these other guys that don't have MVPs. You're scared of that standard that Lamar Jackson has created for himself. So let's just destroy that standard. I don't want it anymore. I don't want the MV3 standard because I'm afraid he won't live up to it in the postseason. To me, that's out of fear. So now that you've like tried to destroy the people who judge him at his high standard, now you want to destroy the standard itself, which is 3 MVPs. You can't be afraid of success. You can't be afraid of success, because here's the thing. You listen to Chris Long in there. Do you get a sense of like pity from him? A little bit of pity? There's no pity for Patrick Mahomes. There's a lot of hate for Patrick Mahomes. Why? Because he's winning. It stinks to listen to the hate that comes at Lamar Jackson, but people get tired of people that constantly win, and so they try to tear him down. I want people to be trying to tear him down like they try to tear down Patrick Mahomes, not have pity for him and the Ravens. I don't want pity. Mark Andrews doesn't want the pity. He wants to make it right. He wants you to come after him, not have pity for him. Don't destroy high expectations because you're afraid that they won't be met in the postseason. Don't have him shrink in the regular season so there's not great expectations for him in the postseason. Lamar can play like an MVP in the postseason. We just witnessed it in the second half. We witnessed it against Houston. We witnessed it against the Tennessee Titans in 2020. We've witnessed it. He's capable of it. Don't shrink from it. Don't shrink from it. Wear MV3 proud when he wins it. And don't let trolls beat you in thinking it's not a good thing. It's a great thing. It's not a meh thing. It's an all-time greatness thing. And believe that he will put more on his resume by winning the Super Bowl later. If you don't believe in that, fine. You don't. I believe he's going to win a Super Bowl. And I think he's going to be one of the select few that will have at least 3 MVPs plus a Super Bowl. And maybe more. You heard Shannon Sharp. He said he believes that once Lamar wins one, that it might start rolling because he will have figured it out. And I'm telling you, he's figuring it out. Lamar Jackson is one of those quarterbacks It's insane that he came into the league as talented as he was and yet continues to improve. We've seen it year over year over year. Each MVP keeps getting better. Each playoff game keeps getting better. That's what we saw with Mike Sando's graph. He's improving not just as an MVP, but in the postseason. He's going to get there. He's going to get there. And don't be ashamed of the MVPs. Don't let meh. It's not meh. It's incredible. You're going to want as many as you can once he gets that, once all is said and done and he has a Super Bowl to cap it off. All right. Any other super chats that I'm missing here? We'll get to a couple more here. 77 Figures says, no excuses to give up 160 yards to a scat back. Sorry. Who got 160 yards? Clarify in the chat for me if you can. Okay, Liv B. Can't blame M. Andrews for not going down. I didn't say go down. I said go left. I said go north and south. North and south. You are not Zay Flowers trying to just juke people and go east and west. Says they are trained to fight for yards and get yak. That fumble was all about ball security, and that's it. I think it's both, but I hear you. Diamond Bowl. The MVP to Super Bowl talk is dumb. They never attach the ages of those quarterbacks when they win their Super Bowls. It's disingenuous. It's disingenuous AF. Most are like 28 to 30 when they win. And hey, I hear you, Diamond. I agree. Like look at this. Let's bring this back up. There are a few that won them early, right? Aaron Rodgers won his early. He's got four MVPs and just won Super Bowl. Peyton Manning took forever. He never got one with the Colts. Went and got one with the Broncos. Tom Brady, I can't remember when he got his first one. I think it was earlier than his 8th year, though. Patrick Mahomes a little bit earlier. Steve Young it took a minute. He had a bunch of MVPs before he won it. And he's not on here because he didn't get an MVP, but I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado, so I grew up a Broncos fan. John Elway, they talked about him all the time as one of the greats. And it took until his last 2 years to win Super Bowls. His last 2 years of his career, he was in his 30s. And so I think Diamond Bowl makes a good point. Like, Lamar may have the most MVPs at the youngest age. Again, celebrate that. I will, when it is announced, I will have graphics and all of that. And you trolls can come on into my mentions all day long. It's not going to faze me because that's them coping. That's them coping with the fact that the Ravens have a 3-time MVP. He will get his Super Bowl. He will get his Super Bowl. All right. Thank you, Diamond Bowl. Okay. On to the next topic here. How am I an hour 5 in on a Sarah Solo day? It never ceases to amaze me. Okay. Next topic. Derrick Henry clearly saw this quote yesterday from Eric DeCosta. Eric DeCosta yesterday in the season review with him and John Harbaugh was asked about Derrick Henry's contract. We know that Derrick Henry, when he was signed in March, signed a 2-year deal. And so he played so well, almost rushing for 2,000 yards. Was such a phenomenal fit, despite some doubters. A lot of people thought that it was going to be, what it really became, which was a phenomenal duo of Lamar and Derrick Henry in the backfield. So they asked, well, do you think you should extend him again? And Eric DeCosta says, well, we'll look at that. It's a good question. I'm just so grateful that Derrick chose us last year. I can honestly say that his attitude and the way that he played was amazing to watch. I can't wait to see him next year. I know it was tough on him to end the way it did. It was tough on all of us, but I think we have a chip on our shoulders to come back next year with a vengeance. Obviously, we've heard that before. We talked about that yesterday, but I shall continue. He said, we want to start faster than we did this year, to not start 0-2 next year, to get out of the gates faster. I think Derrick will be a big part of that. So the Ravens account on Instagram posted a portion of that quote. And it's the "I'm so grateful" part that Derek chose us. And you can say he was honestly just happy and that he was amazing to watch. So the King, Derek the King Henry, Derek McQueen or Derek McKing, as Lamar Jackson gave him a nickname of, or maybe not on purpose. He takes that from the Ravens, reposts it in his stories with 3 words in caps: "Run it back." Run it back. Yes, run it back with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Run it back. Give me more of these Minkah Fitzpatrick stiff arms. Give me more beating Patrick Queen, snatching their souls. And here's what's crazy. And it's not just run it back with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Check this out. I looked into this today. Because remember a couple days ago, we were looking at the free agents, the unrestricted free agents going into the offseason starting in March when free agency officially starts. There's 17, but the vast majority of them are not starters. There are 17, and we talked about it. Like, even if the Ravens didn't bring back any of the 17, they have quite the foundation. Look at this. I put together the depth chart. I just took the starters from ESPN. ESPN always makes the starters as 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end, but I looked at it. So they originally had Nelson Aguilar listed as a starter, but I looked at it and went back to the participation chart. Isaiah Likely did indeed have more starts than Nelson Aguilar. And we all know, like, the Ravens' bread and butter is more 2 tight end, 2 wide receivers, than whatever combination with running backs, fullbacks, all that kind of stuff. Let's look at this starting chart. Let's look at this starting chart and see why Derrick Henry is saying run it back. Lamar Jackson, under contract. Derrick Henry, under contract. Zay Flowers, coming back. Rashad Bateman, coming back. Isaiah Likely, coming back. Mark Andrews, coming back. Pat Ricard, not under contract yet, so I can't officially count him, but I'm telling you he's coming back. He said on Monday he wants to retire a Raven, and on Wednesday, Eric DeCosta said he wants to see him retire a Raven. There aren't a whole lot of fullback jobs out there, especially with a running back crew like the one that the Ravens sport with Lamar and Derek and Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell. So, you know what? For the purpose of the show, I'm counting him as coming back. Ronnie Stanley, we'll see. Patrick McCary, we'll see. Tyler Linderbaum, coming back. Daniel Faalele, coming back. Roger Rosengarten, coming back. So if we count Patrick Ricard, that's 10 of those 12 right there. I know 11 are only allowed on the field at once, but these are how they do the depth chart. How about the defense? It's even better. Nnamdi Madubuike coming back. Travis Jones coming back. Broderick Washington coming back. Odafe Owe, Roquan Smith, both coming back. Malik Harrison, we'll see. Wouldn't surprise me if they got him, but obviously did a great job. But obviously somebody they can get if he doesn't return. Kyle Van Noy coming back. Nate Wiggins coming back. Kyle Hamilton coming back. Ardarius Washington, who wants all the smoke, coming back. Brandon Stevens not coming back. Eric DeCosta made that pretty clear in as nice of a way as possible, but said he's going to have a chance to test the market. Don't think he's coming back. Marlon Humphrey coming back. Justin Tucker, they said it. He's going to be the kicker next year. Jordan Stout. Nick Moore. Now, if you don't count Patrick Ricard, that's 80% of your starters are coming back. You count Patrick Ricard, that goes up to what? 82%, maybe 83%? We'll see what happens with Todd Monken. Has anybody seen anything lately? I was pressed for time this morning, as you all know. Is there any updates on Jags? The last time we talked about it yesterday, the Jags were heading into second interviews, and at the time, Todd Monken was not selected for a second interview. And I believe he only had a Zoom interview prior to this. But you've got your defensive coordinator coming back, and if Todd Monken returns for the first time in 3 years, you will not have to implement a new defense or a new offense. We know that Ravens team, both in 2023 and 2024, was probably the most talented in the AFC. You run it back and cut down on the turnovers, and I'm telling you, you're going to get to a Super Bowl. So when Derrick Henry says, run it back, I'm on board for it. And all you got to do, it's just augmenting this. There's a great chance you're getting better. Eric DeCosta absolutely nailed his first 2 picks with Roger Rosengarten and Nate Wiggins. He's going to have 11 picks at his disposal. I don't know if he'll use all 11 of them. He could use them for trades. Who knows what? At worst, the biggest position, the biggest need is going to be that left tackle position if they do not re-sign Ronnie Stanley. They do need to get better guards in here. We need more safeties, free safety especially. Okay? Good backup quarterback just in case. Okay? But yeah. Run it back. And I like the idea of Derrick Henry being here again. I'm going to go play that Hard Knocks, just his part of it, afterwards one more time of what Derrick Henry said about Lamar.
Being a teammate and, found a brother. Lamar is, what made this thing go. He's the reason why we still had a chance. So, tell him the same thing, hold his head high, man.
Hold his head high. He's found a brother. These two are more than teammates. They found brothers. It's not going to be the biggest splashy offseason. It's not going to be the most exciting. I'm sure they'll pick, maybe they'll get one big free agent off the street. But the foundation is intact. You got 80+% of your starters returning, and that's not even looking at the rest. When I could go down the second strings, and I bet like 80% of them are coming back too. Most of the guys that are unrestricted free agents, some second strings, third strings, all that kind of stuff. Run it back. All right. Moving along here. What do we got here? Okay, some quick hits here. Finishing some things up. So, there's some movement in who's officially going to the Pro Bowl. Kyle Van Noy. Boy, has this been a long time coming. Kyle Van Noy has officially been named to the Pro Bowl games. He will be replacing TJ Watt, who's unable to participate due to injury. 11 seasons. It took him 11 seasons. And how many sacks did he have this year? Did he have 12 and a half sacks? For some reason, that is the number that is Kyle Van Noy stats. That's the number that's sticking out to me, but it sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot. Here we go. Kyle Van Noy sacks. Oh, give me a total. I hate it when they list him. He did. He had 12 and a half sacks. It took him 12 and a half sacks in his 11th season to make it to the Pro Bowl. I guarantee you he is happy, even though it's like a full first alternate. Eric DeCosta talked about it yesterday. He has loved this signing. The way he infuses energy and experience and wisdom and knowledge into an otherwise pretty young outside linebacker core. He's a heck of a deal. You go look up guys who have double-digit sacks and how much they cost. And I guarantee you, Kyle Van Noy might be the biggest deal to be had at outside linebacker with 12 and a half sacks for anybody that's not on their rookie deal. And Eric DeCosta just talks about how he's like, I know he loves it here. He's been around the league. He's played for 3 or 4 different teams in 3 or 4 different cities. He talks all the time about how much he loves it here. That means something inside that outside linebackers room. Congratulations, Kyle Van Noy. Now, on the flip side of that, unfortunately, Zay Flowers will not be taking part in the Pro Bowl, which really stinks. Well, it stinks for two reasons. One, it's because they're not in the Super Bowl. But the second reason is because this would have been his first Pro Bowl. As a second-year wide receiver, he was supposed to be... I'm laughing because it's so sad. He was supposed to be... He is the first wide receiver in Ravens history to go to a Pro Bowl, at least a wide receiver that's not going as a returner. The first one ever named, and now we don't get to see it. And it's not like we don't get to see it because he's going to the Super Bowl. We don't get to see it because he's still working on that sprained knee. Oh, that stinks. That stinks. They said yesterday during the press conference that it's unlikely he will need any sort of surgery. Obviously, it's too soon to know for sure. They were optimistic he would have played in that AFC Championship game had they made it through. But he will go down. It still counts, though, right? I mean, it still counts. He's a first-team Pro Bowler. But that stinks. It stinks that he's robbed of that with this injury. So we know he will bounce back. Meanwhile, over the last couple of days, the Ravens have done a few things in terms of signing guys to deals. 2 days ago, the Ravens had signed 10 guys to future contracts. So they brought back quarterback Devin Leary, their 5th-round draft pick, I believe, quarterback in the last draft. Wide receiver Malik Cunningham, wide receiver Dayton Wade, tight end Zaire Mitchell. Is it Patton or Payton? Offensive tackle Corey Bullock, guard Darian Dalcourt, defensive tackle Basil Okoye, defensive end. Oh my gosh, these names. I don't even know them because they've been on the practice squad. I just haven't gotten practice of them. Aditi Dio. O'Delly. I'm butchering these. I'm so sorry. Defensive end CJ Ravenel. Linebacker William Quenque. So all but one of them were on the practice squad. People were asking why Qadri Ishmael's son, Kadir, wasn't on this list. Jebs Rebeck tweeted, quick note on Ishmael. Ravens are interested in signing him to a deal, and the interest is mutual, but Kadir will just need to pass a physical after having foot surgery during the season. So it should get done when he's ready. So we anticipate Ishmael being back. Meanwhile, today, the update right before the show was that the Ravens have re-signed wide receiver Anthony Miller to a reserve future deal. So Anthony Miller getting a few call-ups late in the year and actually produced. So those are some of those back-end roster moves that have been done. Meanwhile, bring this like this here. There's been news everywhere. The Ravens website wrote about it. Most national websites have. Bills Mafia, after Mark Andrews missed that game-tying 2-point conversion, Bills Mafia raised over $33.6 thousand for Andrews' charity after he started receiving death threats. So this is the classic no good deed goes unpunished, because there's a number of Ravens fans I've seen on Twitter that are like, man, this isn't truly, altruistic, or they don't really care. If he caught it, they wouldn't have been donating to it. Well, yeah. They're doing it because he got death threats, which is like, whatever. Football means different things to different people. But may I submit that if it means so much to you that you want to give death threats, or that you're going after his girlfriend on social media, your priorities are not quite in line. You got to find other things in life. You got to find other things in life if it takes you to that point. But yeah, they're doing it for sure because he dropped it, and for sure because he received death threats. But do you think that his charity isn't going to accept it because of that? You don't think that it can't be put to good use? Just say thank you and good on you. Come on now. Come on now. It's a good move. It's a good move by Bills Mafia. And I can say that as somebody who has been nonstop trolled by them over the last month and a half or so. Nonstop. Just even in, I've got so many following me now. It's not that they just show up when they see a tweet go viral. They now follow me. And in non-MVP talk or non-Bills versus Ravens stuff, they're still in there. So as somebody who's been trolled by them for a month and a half, I can separate and know that every fan base, and obviously to different levels, and some of them have been absolutely nasty. I won't even give it oxygen, some of the things some of them have said about Lamar Jackson. Just despicable in some of them, but I'm not going to give it oxygen. And so as somebody that's been trolled, I can say to the good of Bills Mafia, good on you, thank you, and I'm sure Mark Andrews and his charity will make it go a long way. This I thought was funny. I think it might be our last quick hit. So Marlon Humphrey, as you may have noticed, is back on Twitter now that the season is over. He took a bit of a sabbatical, if you will. And once he came back on and he's tweeting, then this tweet comes up. He says, I really forgot how toxic this app is. And he says, I love it here, with like a kind of frowny emoji or whatever. And it is indeed can be toxic at times. So you guys remember Jermaine Illuminor, the Ravens former offensive lineman? Pretty sure they drafted him. Was he an undrafted rookie? I can't remember, but they got him out of college. So he quote retweets Marlon and says, I heard you wanted to come play in New York. Mind you, Marlon Humphrey's under contract still, but okay. And then Micah Parsons, who has his own quarterback, Dak Prescott, who was in the MVP conversation last year. You know, this man, Mike Parsons quote retweets Jermaine Illuminar and says, are you really pitching to someone who has Lamar? Yes, Jermaine Illuminar. Marlon Humphrey wants out of his very lucrative contract for a team that he had a huge bounce back year, and a team that believed in him when the fan base was like, cut Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey was so moved by the faith of his own head coach. During one practice, he randomly goes up to him, puts his arm around him, and tells him how much it meant to him that in the offseason, still coming back from injuries and trying to play through them for the previous year, but didn't have his best year. He said, I appreciate your text that you said, I believe in you. He wants to leave a team where his coach had his back, where he has a very lucrative contract and has Lamar Jackson as his quarterback, and wants to come play for New York, who for most of the season was in competition for the #1 draft pick because that's how many games you lost this year. Hey, I applaud you for trying, though. I applaud you for trying. That was funny for me. Oh, I guess that wasn't my last quick hit. This one's got to be it, right? This one's definitely it. Okay. I haven't looked much at the draft myself yet. Still coming out of this Ravens season. But Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network, their draft guru, former scout of the Baltimore Ravens, says this draft is stacked with defensive tackles. Jeff Zrebeck quote retweets that and says, well, that works in the Ravens' favor. They could get used to getting younger there and at another building block alongside just Nnamdi Madubuike and Travis Jones. Yeah, Michael Pierce getting on the, back nine of his career. And I don't know if they're going to have enough money to pay both Madubuike and Travis Jones. Travis Jones, I believe this is his last year of his rookie contract, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, let's start building because the money is tied up in Madubuike. So you're going to want to keep getting rookies who can play alongside him on those cheaper rookie contracts. So that is officially my last quick hit. And that is our show. How do we do today? How do we do? Getting inside the locker room a little bit via Hard Knocks, getting those true raw emotions from Lamar, and hearing from Derrick Henry saying to run it back. Chris Long, some good good insight there of being too big for mundane moments. Mike Sando with the great, graph of EPA in the regular season versus off season. Truth Bear coming through with some great screen grabs of turnovers by the defense. It's that turnover margin. Derrick Henry wanting to run it back. Pro Bowl changes. A lot of stuff to get to today. It was a really, really great time with you guys today. I want to give much love to you all for spending this hour with me. Bobby's not here, so I got to say it. We have 3,190 concurrents, which is not a bad number given how bad I know some of you feel. So I appreciate you guys kind of reliving that game and some of the emotional moments. And most of all, though, want to give love to Bobby and wish him the best. Hope he feels better soon. Bobby also told me that he updated the patrons. Let me see if I can find this. You're watching. Here we go. Boom! I remember patrons. Tila didn't even have to remind me. You may have, Tila, but I didn't see it. Thank you to our patrons. Greg Adair. Of course I have tough names. Okay, Greg Adair and Alice Dare McLaughlin. Sorry if I butchered that. It shows it has nothing to do with showing my gratitude. I'm so grateful for you guys and being a patron. If you guys want to also support the show and become a patron, head over to, Google it, the Vault patron, and it'll come up for sure. Trying to see here. Tila said she was coming. Tila said she was coming. Appreciate that. We might need to make Tila like an official producer of the show. Maybe we should explore that this offseason. We need to make Tila an official producer. Maybe Tila could be the one in charge of comments, what gets flashed up, bringing up the patrons, showing these banners, all that kind of stuff. Come on, Tila. You want to. Luke says make her a mod. I wouldn't hate it. I just wouldn't. Oh, Tila's showing me the eye emojis. I just don't want it to hurt you commenting, Tila. I would need you. I like your comments in here. I think you keep things going. So look at me putting this out there, and I haven't talked to Bobby about it. Out here trying to make unilateral decisions without him. But anyway, appreciate you, Tila. Appreciate the patrons. Appreciate the chat. Appreciate all you guys for listening. Hope you will join me and maybe Bobby tomorrow. Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to check in on him. I know he's eating a lot of chicken soup and a lot of liquids, all that kind of stuff. Hold on. I just got a last minute. I just got to get a last minute super chat here. Diamond Bull with his second one says Stanley and McCary are gone. Chicago, Washington have bad offensive lines and they have money. Ricard, I agree in terms of returning. I'd target Calais Campbell and Bobby Wagner. And Notre Dame, Xavier Watts is a safety in the draft. I don't hate any of that. Yeah, I mean, you're naming some names that they're a bit older, and so when you're coming out of the off season, these are names that I'd be like, after you've gone through the first round of free agency and you've gone to the draft, then you plug holes with some of the veterans. But I wouldn't hate a Bobby Wagner. I wouldn't hate a Calais Campbell. I don't think Bobby would happen though. Because basically they want Trenton Simpson to become that guy. And if he does, Bobby Wagner would not be happy not being a starter. He's not. I don't think he's at the stage where he's like, yeah, I'll be a backup. Maybe he would be. So maybe you could explore that, but I don't think he's there yet. Calais is somebody who I think you could wait until after a couple waves of free agency. But, I don't hate this draft suggestion of the safety. Xavier Watts. I don't hate that at all. And you might be right about Stanley McCary, but I would make an offer to Stanley. And then Stanley's going to have to, Washington, I could see him maybe wanting to go to Washington. Chicago, that'd be tough. You've been contending for your whole career with Lamar Jackson, and then you go to Chicago. So we'll see. Okay. Oh my gosh. Another last minute super chat. Asmodeus says, let's sign Parsons. I would not hate that. He talks a lot. So they would bring that circus would be here. But could you imagine Parsons in this defense? Ooh. Pretty sure he's like their foundation in the Cowboys though. But now's the time to dream because our last stream of the Super Bowl just got crushed. So why not dream now? Okay, seriously, this time we're closing up. Hope you will be back here with me tomorrow for the noonday lunch hour live stream here inside the vault. Have a great day.